Hello, humans. I am your host, Bradley Martin, and this is Clearing the Way, a resource for small business. I talk with sales and HR experts, other small business owners, and anyone else that can provide you with information to clear your way to success. My guest today is Mark Kennison, owner of President's Pub in 19 North. Mark's a Washington and Jefferson alumni and lifelong Washington, PA resident. He's been responsible for tons of Washington staples over the last several years. Founder of Upper Crust, the Italian Deli, and Rachel Rose's coffee shop, which are now Chicco Baccello. President's Pub, 19 North. Forbidden Cellars, I think, is a piece of that, or is that something separate?
It's a collaboration with my brother.
Okay. Yep. Mark's recent focus on 19 North has brought a ton of traffic downtown and has provided the downtown area with a fantastic event venue that's hosted multiple concerts, comedy shows, winners, farmers markets, jazz festivals, and plenty of other things in the past and definitely upcoming. Mark, thanks for being a guest on Clearing the Way.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we'll start out like I normally do, which is back in school. What kind of student were you? Were you involved in any activities, anything like that? You went to Trinity, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of student were you? What were you involved with? Just kind of set the stage a little bit for us.
Sure. Yeah, Trinity High School. Started there in ninth grade. It was a private school, Central Christian Academy before that. So my first public schooling experience was Trinity in ninth grade. So I'd say I was a scholar athlete, straight A student for the most part. A couple B's sprinkled in there, but also captain the basketball team. I lettered in, several sports.
Okay. What else did you play?
Baseball, track and field.
Okay.
Soccer.
Oh, damn.
Tennis.
Okay.
We were quad A champions with Paul McCune. Well, he was much better than me, so that's why we were tennis champions, but my partner was so good. But yeah, several sports, loved it, did that my whole life, and but mother was always a stickler for education, so like bad grades, like you don't get to play sports, so it was a good mix.
Did the school side come naturally for you, or was it, did you have to work kind of hard for it? Like, where did you fall in that realm for high school, at least?
School academically, I was pretty well off. I did well on testing. I did well at cramming last minute. I did well at like the shortcuts that aren't good long-term practices but get good grades in school.
Same.
So that was good for, report card, but definitely not having to, versus someone that has to like put 100% effort in to get a grade. Like, you need to put 100% effort into all that you do at all times, and that's kind of a life lesson that, like, after the fact, kind of looking back, like, you kind of get used to skating by. Grades are good. That was good enough. But fully applying yourself and, like, figuring out what your true potential is, that can be a challenge to overcome when school comes easily, the structure of it.
Yeah, that actually just came up yesterday when I was talking to Evan, that, like, you do well in high school, and then you move on, and it's like, oh, I actually have no idea how to do. I don't know how to study. Like, I don't know how to do any of this right now. Which I don't know how you, like. I don't know if you can fix that, or I don't know how you do better with that. But, that's funny that you bring that up also. So,
I think it comes with a bit of confidence. So as you move on, like, as things were easy, you naturally just take on maybe too much because you're thinking, like, there's a ceiling of limit of work in high school, and then the real world, you get to, like, pick and choose your schedule, college courses. You can kind of take a heavy schedule, light schedule. You can work while you're in school. And then once I started piling on, like, what I realized was a little bit of a reality check, like, it's not quite the same now. So we gotta, if you want to be your best and, like, keep your reputation high, now it's time to dig a little deeper. And that kind of where, like, getting used to putting 100% effort into things, like, really started taking its weight.
When you were in high school, did you have any idea, like, what was your plan after school? Or did you have one?
So it was kind of built in for me. So I knew I wanted to, my mom was like, be a lawyer or a doctor, please. Don't go into business like your father. So I always planned on going to business like my father as an entrepreneur. That's just where my heart was.
How early did you... So two parts there. Part one is, I'm asking this from my side because I feel like I had a little bit of this. Was it and much different things, but was it I don't like that you're telling me not to do this, so this is what I lean towards, or were you naturally more interested in in business?
It was natural.
Okay,
I love the idea of being in business myself. Always was like growing up, just different, side hustles and different things, little, ways to make money, just being creative with it.
Okay.
I just really like that side of being in control.
How early on did you kind of start any of that?
Seriously, I'd say, maybe.
Even not seriously.
Right.
Like, are we talking high school, middle school? Like, how early?
I'd say middle school into high school. I was already like, there's like multi-level marketing you can get in at like a young age, like silly pyramid programs, like trying to get the neighborhood kids on board. I had a business, grocery getters. I was like, if I could, which is a thing now. Yeah. But it's called grocery getters, and I would do grocery shopping for people and charge 18% or a percentage of like how much I had to buy, and take it to them as soon as I got a license. And I had like 2 customers, and never turn anything. But anything I could do that offer convenience and a service, I would try to do. And
okay, that's cool.
So I think it really started growing up. I was certain I was going to be a professional athlete. That dream dies relatively young. And then once I realized my limitations, then I still want to do something on my own. And that's what said maybe, entrepreneurship is probably more likely where I'm headed. Okay.
And did you have any interests of like, so, I mean, I went down through, I'm sure I'm missing some things in that original list, but they're all kind of food industry related. Was that always an interest of yours? We'll get into this deeper, but early on, did you, was food the interest, or did you think you were going to provide you had grocery getters, which is like a service-based thing. Did you have any idea where you were going to go with business? Or was it just like, I know I want to do something by myself and I don't know what it is yet?
I would say yes. And it also like wanting to work with my father, as like mentorship and seeing like him provide, for his family on his own, the sweat of his brow out of his hard work. And
what did he do?
So a few different things, but for the most part, it was started off as a coal miner. That was when I met my mother, but then went into, want to provide a better life and spend more time with my mother and just a career that works for them. So I went into the insurance business into sales, which you could do. Okay. Not being a college graduate. Kind of learned the ins and outs, and really the only one that was really making the money owned the insurance agency. So in talking to the other people that worked with him, realized that the boss could have been a little bit more fair. So he started his own insurance agency and took some people with him. Okay. And got to see that transition. And then he was now the boss, and coming up from the story of a, humble coal miner from Smithfield, PA, a little town outside of Uniontown, to be a boss. And then he did very well. And I think it was a lot of his, the sales structure and building up a team. So he was hired as a consultant by bigger companies to train their sales staff and kind of how to build a sales team. And so that was growing up. It was insurance, but a lot of consulting work too, as like being good at what you do. Can you teach us too? So I just thought that was always cool.
That's cool. So your mom didn't want you to pursue that. She wanted the safer option. Was there anything have you ever asked her about that? Like what pushed... I mean, I guess as a parent, you probably want the safer. Like those other things they feel way more stable. Was that the basis for it? Like, was there something? Yeah, I don't know. It's strange that if he's doing well, which clearly was, that it wouldn't be like, okay, well maybe they would get better. Maybe they would be equipped for it also.
Sure. Well, I think both my parents grew up poor. So
gotcha.
My mother, full-time school, went into nursing, like got a job where she could be independent. And so she was in school full time while a nurse full time. So her structures worked super hard at a career.
Gotcha.
And she was able to provide stable means for herself.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
yes, my dad did well, but coming from the coal mine, the learning curve of success from, we're talking over a decade plus span. So like when they first got married, had me small, 1-bedroom apartment. I think my crib was in the laundry room next to Trinity High School. The money wasn't there for a long time. It was a lot of investment. So kind of riding on. She had to hold out for a promise of this will all be worth it in the end. But knowing like coming from not much and not a lot of help from her parents, like she just understood you get a job and you work really hard. This up and down and hope and risk taking. Like,
it's a lot.
It's a lot. And she's with nothing even remotely familiar to her to see it like in a real world practice, like, oh, well, that worked out for so-and-so. No. They struggled their whole lives and she didn't want to. So she wanted to go in a career that would pay fair and be secure and stable.
That makes a lot of sense.
Knowing her partner was doing the opposite, rolling the dice. They didn't know what a bigger piece of the pie looked like. So the ambition was scary to her. So like through those times growing up, there are ups and downs. Businesses sold, different companies. There's just things that were unfamiliar. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have this interest in business pretty early on. When you go to college, what were you going for? So business.
Yep.
Okay. Was there? I guess your mom was focused on education, so that there probably the option to not go was probably not as
correct. Not going to college was not.
Yeah.
We were never raised that was like an option or take a year off or figure it out. It was like you're gonna no matter what pursue education as a staple or at least foundationally. Yeah. And I think so. Went to school for business. Me and my father started, but I started working at a dog treat bakery, Just Dogs Gourmet. That's when he got out of the insurance business. Partners wanted to go different ways, and he just wanted to move in a new direction and sold the insurance business. And then one day he approached me and says, Mark, I think I know what I'm doing next. Dog treats. And we don't even have a dog at this point. My parents, my mother never even let us have a dog, and he's going into dog treats. And I thought for sure it was a joke. And then he starts talking about, oh, no, in California and Europe, they're 10 years ahead of us and spoiling these pets. And the industry is surpassing candy and chocolates. Look at these. And I was like, that just sounds absolutely insane. So we did it. We went forward with it. We moved into Quail Acres, where Pig and Fire is now. That was my office in that building. So we were in there.
Wow, okay.
And that little Artemis Botanicals outside of it, that little cool little soap shop, that was our bakery. So it was me and two old ladies, Marcy and Janie. Janie's Toll House Cookies, and Marcy had something named Marcy's Monster Bones, and old ladies and hair nuts and me hand cutting dog treats like on an assembly line in a hot little thing with one oven, and we're producing these treats, and the response to the market was pretty well. To the point where dog fanatics started coming from all over, because these were human grade, handmade, gluten-free. We understood that, the intolerances and wheat allergy with dogs, and so we started customizing, and then we were throwing dog birthday parties, and there was a big playground, and it was ridiculous. But really cool because people were infatuated with their pets, as they still are. Yeah. But to take the time you really didn't see in like a Walmart or this or even a PetSmart, like literally cut by hand and hand decorated for the seasonal, to really give a chance, like ultimately like a gourmet bakery for dogs.
That is so okay. So he comes to you with this idea. Yep. Where are you at this point?
High school.
Oh wow. Okay, so you're still in high school.
Yes.
Damn. Okay. Right. Okay.
So
okay.
As then I realized where this is going. So we decide we open our first store in a mall. So now someone wants we expand and we go into Robinson Mall, and it did really well. And then someone asked, like, they fell in love with the idea and like, can I open my own? And then we realized that now that we see this model, maybe franchising is really the way to go to expand the business. So we sold that store, and it did phenomenal. And then the demand for more stores really started coming. So I saw where we're headed, and I knew I'm going full-time to work right when I went into college. So it was like either evenings for production or during the day, like management or office stuff. But it was very difficult to balance a schedule. But the rate we were growing, I just knew, like, this is something, one, my dad needed me. Like, I'd have to be there just to keep up with the workload. Like, the business was growing as fast as we could grow it with the help we had.
Yeah.
So I knew, like, I'm going to school. That's why I went to W&J, not just because I love the school in the hometown, but I have to work full time. So I need to go to the closest college that's going to provide a good education.
That is wild.
Yep.
Okay. Damn. Okay. So how long were you doing that?
So it went 2004, Entrepreneur Magazine named us one of the top hottest franchises in the country. We made a top 500 list. From that, we started on
how many stores?
Oh man, we were probably up into the double digits at that point. Robinson, South Hills, I operated the Crown Center, Ross Park Mall, Cranberry. So locally, we were in every mall. Morgantown. Okay. So once we hit there, and it was the price point. It was easy to get in. It was the profit margin was high. The industry, they believed in it. And then we started on pace to open about 2 to 3 stores a month. So we expanded bakeries to Pike Street. We were actually in the building that I think Helltown Brewing is. Okay. Until that flood happened, and nobody had flood insurance because that wasn't a thing up here. But we were right by Cannonsburg Lake / river, that runs through. So our bakery got flooded out, and honestly, we needed a bigger bakery anyway. So we moved back to all production to the Washington Mall because we could get 7,000 square feet next to Joann Fabrics. So it was like us, Joann Fabrics, Pizza Boy, and Shorty. So lunch was awesome, and we had a ton of square footage, and that's when we were able to produce all the product for all the stores, and we shipped the product we were in 22 states, and 22 states, and we were in Quebec and Vancouver. We had a store on Qualicum Island, Vancouver Island. Actually drove the store from New Jersey. I picked up the model. I drove in a U-Haul to Vancouver, got on a ferry. It was a 35-hour drive, but I had to bring a store, so I had to drive a truck. And then we landed on Vancouver Island, and then I built them their store. And then that was our first Canada. Getting the product across the border was nuts. Ran out of gas in Montana. It was an adventure. But then that's what I would do. So I would travel the country. I would build their store. I would train them. I'd be there for their first week. And then I'd come back home. And then from there, we would send like quarterly CDs on training upgrades. And here's what we're going to decorate treats. So everyone's, Valentine's Day case had hearts and this and looked like a real bakery. So we would send like a tutorial on how to decorate. So we would send them the raw biscuit baked, no preservatives, all natural, and then they would melt carob and like diabetic chocolates and yogurts and make it healthy for dogs and add natural ingredients for vitamins, and so it actually would be filling some of the gaps in dog food, but our dog treats would actually supplement as like a health benefit as well. So then we're in Mall of America, King of Prussia, the high-end stores, so Florida, California, so real wealthy areas or like really booming downtowns or like cool cities. And that was an amazing experience. I learned an unbelievable amount. But as far as when I fell in love with developing hometowns is from traveling the world and seeing like what Washington could be. And that was one after another. I was like, man, I just fell in love with the vision of like mom and pop owned stores filling back up main streets, people walking up and down to a coffee shop and you're walking dogs, and it's just a vibrant life, and it's just businesses that are unique and cool and only produced in that town. Yeah. So it was just a special experience. That is so wild. Okay. That's crazy.
And you're doing this while in school still? Jesus. Okay. That's wild. Okay. So when you're going through school, you're expecting that when you're done with school, this is what you're going to be doing for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
How long were you involved with that?
So yeah, once for sure it was full time as soon as I could. Right after school, then it was just full tilt, and that's more of when I was actually traveling the country.
Yeah.
I was more when in school it was more headquarters, but we were only regionally in this area. So again, 2004, and then a few years later, now we're traveling, and now we have a headquarters in Birmingham, and we're building a dog treat empire. So not only that, I thought I had a full-time job. I also had retirement because it was like the plan was to grow it to a size and then sell it for the appropriate amount. We had a dollar figure listed on it. We just landed a contract with QVC to go on for Christmas specials, and it was like more product than we could produce for all of our stores combined. What their opening order would have looked like to stock, to ship if orders come pouring in online, we had to fulfill. And then we had we were in one of the top 6, so we had a contract also on the table with PetSmart to go into this region, which would have been on the shelf and end cap for 26 stores. Would have been 10 times what we were producing just on that contract. So we knew we were at about 56 stores throughout the United States at that time. So the popularity of some of the publicity from QVC and PetSmart easily would have propelled us to 100 stores. 100 stores would have got us to the dollar figure. The company, we all said, this is a great run. We're going out on top. And then the housing market crash came. So highlight 2006, great year. Come 2007, all of a sudden, with the housing market crash, retail plummets. Where retail really plummets is where 80% of our stores were located, which was in malls. So, as a franchise, we were getting fees, but that fee only really fed our growth, not our salaries. I was making $12 an hour. Had a great share package. So if we sold, I'm set.
Yeah.
But everything's going into let's build this thing. And we were just working our butts off to maintain and put everything back in the company, because it's a lot. When most of your stores are on the West Coast, who's managing? Who's going to a store in Mall of America in Minneapolis, or I think that's where it's at, and quality control. Because if the treats don't look good, someone comes and wants to buy a store and says, well, that bakery wasn't that impressive. There's a lot of quality control. There's a lot of oversight of a franchise that spread out.
How many people did you guys have? Was it just the two of you doing most of the management? How many people were you up to?
So we had, and it was a good model for where we're at. We only had we had a headquarters in Birmingham, maybe 3, 4, and then there's 3 or 4 of us here in Washington.
Okay.
And to manage, we had a master franchise agreement with, if you would take the role of a master franchisee, you oversee a territory. Okay. So your job is to manage the territory of where you're at is so many miles and zip codes we'd figured out, and what stores are fall under your jurisdiction, and then you would get a discount on your royalties. So instead of paying a 4%, you'd pay a 2%, which would be a significant, well worth it to maintain your area. But also they got commission on selling stores, and what we had non-competes with. Just to make sure there aren't stores moving too close. It was well structured. So basically, we find our best stores in a region. So, man, you're a great store owner. Would you want to be in charge of this region? We'll give you discounted royalties. It'll save you X amount of dollars, make it well worth your time. And then we could, so that was really our staff, was our best store owners, became partners with us.
So, your dad was in insurance before and in consulting. You're a high school student when you start, and you're in college after that. How were you to figure all this out, to figure out the franchising model? Were you going outward for knowledge? Were you hiring consultants and things to come in, or Were you guys just figuring this out?
We were mostly figuring out what we outsourced, and there's a lot of figuring out.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say we really like hit it out of the park getting started, but one thing I learned, well, I guess developed and appreciated from my dad's standpoint and my mother both, I'd have to say, like work ethic. A lot of times, like when times get tough, there wasn't, and I still say this today for a lot of things I'm involved, there wasn't really a plan B. Like, we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's, you're butting heads, but at the end of the night, as long as the people you're with, you can count on, and that's what fueled the vision, and just knowing that we're not going to let each other down, like we figured it out.
Yeah.
And we were able to overcome a lot. Housing market crash, that's another story.
Yeah.
That's when, like, we stopped selling stores because a store owner, they want to talk to your last store and you're sharing financials and like, oh, your sales are down. Yeah, they're down. How's Morgantown doing? That mall actually closed indefinitely. And they're like, And then like our selling stores came to halt. So that was our cash flow. Like we had royalties, but the royalties isn't not money to grow. It was money to maintain.
Yeah.
So then we have stores saying, oh, I'm not doing so well in this area. In Florida, maybe they're doing really well because the retirement community isn't affected by this. And maybe California was doing fine because of the money and just but other stores that were affected by this, the housing market crash, were affected differently.
Yeah.
So ultimately we made the decision to, we're not going to sell this thing. We're going to have to sell all the rights of a franchise back to all the individual stores and let them own them independently and make their decisions based on what's best for their region, because it just something we couldn't survive as we were structured. So we had to find, again, we were high end. This is like the quality of our product was luxury. Like it was like the Godiva chocolate for dogs.
Yeah.
So when you walk through, and a lot of a sales pitch, and the reason why we're in so many malls, like foot traffic wise, kids would walk by, they'd see this bakery case just looking delicious. And they're dog treats. Mom, let me get this cookie. The mom's buying these cookies, and we wait a while, and we let them know. We're like, you know those are dog treats. And then like, oh my goodness. And then we'll grab one and eat it, or have them try like one of the dog candies, and like they're like thinking we're out of our mind. And then you're like, tell them what it's made of. Like, no, this is 100% human grade. It's actually just like way healthier than a cookie. That's why it's good for your dog too. Like we know what we're doing. And that was, people just thought that was hilarious. But we got so many people stopping thinking we were a human bakery. Yeah. And that was actually one of the things that our stores did. We won second best looking kiosk design. Godiva chocolate did beat us number one. And I can't remember what national publication it was. But we won awards for our store design. So some people used their store and they did open a People Bakery or a jewelry store, or we found a bakery in Canada that could produce just not quite the quality, but at half the cost, so they could lower and become more competitive with. That was the time when everyone went back to Walmart and Target. And we finally, went away from it, and we thought small towns were coming back, and mall traffic was up, and it was more. Stores and retail was up. We found a lot of online shopping discounts and back to like an inferior product, but because it was for the savings wise, a lot of people took that panic and we can't be spending much on dog treats or people treats or really anything like that. So it was a big, huge flip in our industry, and we were just, again, 80% being in malls, and malls were just plummeting. That was when we realized that maybe we wish we would have sold a little sooner, and taken less, but we were, it just...
But I mean, what do you, you can't predict, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Were you doing anything online at that point?
We were developing online. Okay. E-commerce was we were behind, we were behind based on what happened. We were competitive based on where everybody was at this time. Yeah. E-commerce was a thing. Yeah. And it was going to be each store, and we would have survived had this been already implemented. Yeah. Each store would have been a fulfillment center. So your orders come in from the internet that we house all the software in the back office, and wherever that order is placed, we know what store gets that sale. So if your zip code and you have a radius, same with your non-compete clause with stores, you would fulfill those orders. So you don't have to rely on foot traffic anymore. You would just get orders coming in for the web, and whatever store was in that regionally that made the most sense for shipping. Yeah. because it was a perishable product, so that was important. Not shipping to the West Coast, and then something could happen. Time, breakage, UPS, and how they handle packages. It's just the less distance, the better.
Yeah.
And it's just something we did not have. Like, hired a company to build it, but we just weren't there in time to be able to offer online sales to survive like the exodus of mall traffic.
So we're spending way more time on this than I imagined, but this is all good. So, okay, is there anything preparing for that, before that downturn? Was there anything you think you could have done? I mean, obviously starting internet, like starting e-commerce sooner, sure. Was there anything else that you think there was room for improvement that could have helped to keep it either maintaining or growing during that time? And no is also a valid answer there. Right. Like, because I was in middle school. Yeah, I was in middle school, so like, I don't know what the hell was going on then, Like, I don't know how big of a runway there was or how much vision there was to see, like, this thing coming. So no is also a valid answer. But was there anything you think you could have done differently in looking forward to help?
What we could have done, and I'm not saying this would have saved the ship, but just one thing we realized and, like, lesson learned, and, like, we were, once we hit our stride, like, we were able to expand, and now we had a president, a vice president. We're hiring creating this corporate structure just out of sheer need. And the process was not, maybe as thorough as it could have been. Maybe we didn't hire, like, the all-stars that, if we would have taken our time, the vetting process. So there were people that were, qualified. And, they saw the growth, and everything was wonderful. And it was, the stress was low. Bills were all paid. The money's coming in steadily. There's no issue with salaries. We were offered fair wages. But then times got tough. And, first thing we did, we stopped paying ourselves. I mean, the company's got to survive. And people were more worried, well, how much are my shares worth now? And I took this job based on this. And nobody was willing to pull up their bootstraps and actually, like, come together as a team. Yeah. And we kind of realized we built at the rate we had to facilitate 2 to 3 store opening a month. It was a bit of a deck of cards with the management structure and the people we put in positions that, had they been of a more character we needed to, again, now you're surviving this, potentially like similar to the Second Great Depression in a lot of markets. So it's not like, we're asking a lot. Yeah. Right. Come on, guys. But seeing how people change when times got tough versus when times were easy, we realized we had people in positions that weren't the right people for those positions. And that's
where you still owned it. Okay. So that's always a tough thing too, though, because as the owners, like, you can vet, you can do all the things, and you can probably get people that are going to be equally as invested or close. But at the end of the day, if they're there to get their pay, like, if they're not owning it, there is a difference, which is, I mean, you try to weed that out as much as possible, and I'm sure there were some things that you could have seen beforehand or whatever. But, like, that's one of those that I feel like even in... Could you have done that better? Maybe. But that's going to be there, especially given the time. It's like... For sure. Yeah, like you said, like, this isn't just like, oh, we're taking a little bit of a loss this month.
It wasn't a cyclical downturn. It was devastating. Yeah. And that was kind of what led to the decision where, with the group of people we have, we're not going to pull through, and we had the option to try or the option to sell the rights back to the franchisees. Now they're not paying a royalty. Now they have a cheaper product. Let's let them all survive. Yeah. The store Mall of America is still there at the bottom of the stairwell, and, like, the stores are still there. Just Dogs Gourmet is what the once we expand outside of Pennsylvania, we went from Dogs Rule, which is Quail Acres, which is also still there, to Just Dogs Gourmet. Just, I think, pedigree dogs rule is the end of their commercials. So we like had to change the name of our whole company and rebrand everything because of that. Well, as soon as we crossed into California. So we were Just Dogs Gourmet. So those stores still exist, but they're independently owned. And it was just...
That's cool.
We didn't have a team of people that said to rally behind and believe we could pull through it. Just like, guys, it was a good run. It's time for us all head our own directions.
Yeah. Okay. That's wild. That is such a crazy first real step into business. From high school into this thing, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome. So you're through school. Obviously, what was your plan after that? What did you think you were going to do next?
No clue. Literally thought I was close to retirement, and this was, in my, or at least
Yeah.
There's not a lot of stress. I can kind of pick and choose what I want to do. Maybe invest in something cool. So yeah, it was, and it happened pretty quick. So that's I put we opened in 2000 and December 21st, 2002 was our grand opening. So here we are, a good 7 years invested into something.
Pretty damn quick.
Yeah, and from after 7 years, then it went down. Right, the growth was quick, but the decline even much faster. So I remember, I've got a heart for rebuilding my hometown because I've seen beautiful hometowns, small towns thriving across America. So that was like, okay, that was a passion that was instilled. Didn't know what I was going to do with that, but I just kind of knew. Also burned from the corporate structure. Like all these people that, I'm thinking let us down in essence, all the opportunity in the world. Yeah. And it was just very disappointing to see how people change when it's time to actually do the hard work, to make the tough decisions, to really and that was a lesson learned because you're right. Because if it's not yours, they're not similarly invested. It's easy to get the team on board on someone when things are going really well and easy. When you see our true character when it's time to survive something difficult. Yeah. And that's kind of where you test who your real partners are. Yeah. So I was kind of burned on that model, relying on a lot of people. So I was like, what? I want to rely on a lot of people. I don't want to travel around the country, even though I loved it. I want to start back where I started in my hometown, and I want to make it great. I don't know exactly how, but and that's what I told my dad, because he was like, well, what are you going to do, son? I said, I don't know, Dad, what are you going to do? We really don't know. Yeah. So what we did was we went to see, this was Washington's very first farmer's market, where it is now before it had the pavilion. And I was like, well, that's great, because there's nothing left in Washington. So farmer's market, it's working on the area. So I was like, we want to support it. So we went to the first one and went to the farmer's market, and there was nothing there. Hardly. Yeah. Good him. But also early in the season, the produce wasn't there. Very few vendors. But still, I was proud. I was like, all right, Washington, this is the start of something new, and
it's progress.
It's progress. It's something. So we parked on the opposite side, like Vicelli's side, and we walked over, and then I walked down, and it was the Bamboo Garden, which is where the restaurant before the Upper Crust, and it's been closed for a while. They went overseas, never came back, kind of situation. So as we're walking back, we passed it, and I looked on the front door, and it just said, for rent, and a piece of notebook paper and a phone number. And then my dad's like, son, you always said you want to open a restaurant. I said, yeah, I did. So we called, and I signed the lease 2 days later. And
with no plan for what you were going to do there.
Whatsoever.
Oh my God! Okay.
I just knew. I was like, okay. Restaurant was on the bucket list, and I to answer a question from a while back, just to preface the story a little bit. So growing up, grandmothers both sides phenomenal cooks. Fell in love with food. Holidays, there was red sauce every meal. It was just a beautiful Italian tradition, and it's just was a special part. Now, home life, mother full time in college. She was in school for most of her life, to find from a master's in nursing to a doctorate in higher education, while full-time nursing to pay for it. Yeah. We used to complain about the dinners we would get at my mom's table, and she could care less. she worked her butt off and didn't deserve to hear it from us and us be ungrateful. And she said, if you want to eat like that, then you better learn to cook, son. And I said, well, that's fine. So from that passion, when the time with my grandmothers, I started doing the cooking for the family.
Okay.
And I definitely loved it. The passion grew and it became a staple in our household, where now my dad's into cooking and this, and something once my grandparents passed, we stopped seeing family as much. And so those family dinners, those holiday meals kind of went away.
Yeah.
And then I kind of brought them back, and I realized how important it is to bring people back to the dinner table.
Okay.
So that put restaurant on the list
sense.
because it touched me as far as just the importance of bringing people together.
Yeah.
Not just the food, not just because the fun of cooking and things tasting well, the experiencing breaking bread and what that means in today's culture and how relevant it still is. So I just knew that I thought a restaurant in Washington that would be something that would be uniquely created, that would bring people. And that's another thing I lost working like right out of college, like my friends, like a life outside of, and it's not like you get to quit working, you know?
Yeah.
But I wanted a business where people would come see me and I could feed them and we could catch up. And we could talk, and I can send them something home to the, you know, hey,
That's
take
cool.
some cannolis home for your wife because I know she couldn't be here, and I got to at least interact with my community again, my friends again. And I got to be a part of Washington.
Yeah.
And that's why I knew like putting a restaurant right on Main Street when like we've only seen closures was really important to me. And but yeah, we got in there. I said, well, what kind of restaurant? I said, I don't even know. I have no culinary background. I can dog treats. You know, I like a bakery. Like I have some.
Well, but I'm sure that there was a lot in the learning as far as the. It's maybe a stretch, but I'm sure there was a lot that you learned there that carries over to at least making things at larger quantities, because making things for family is like, all right, it's a couple people. It's
right.
I make it, I'm done.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. But I'm sure there were some things that you picked up from that were probably helpful in starting the restaurant, I would imagine.
For sure. And that's food industry, and maybe that's just business, just the business experience, like the real cost of your product, sourcing the best ingredients, also but keeping price in mind, and then understanding what a batch costs, understand if you multiply the efficiency and just kind of like a working model of how do I make a product that I can sell for a profit. Yeah. Like that was all the same kind of wheelhouse. Yeah. And then managing people and just and you know, dog treats was made from fresh dough. So I'm used to making dough. Yeah. I know the feel of it. So there's also things in specific to the upper crust that came from what I was doing in the bakery, because there was a lot of baking to it. We baked all our own desserts, you know, so that's kind of stuff what I was used to, different types of ovens and control and cooling processes and drying. So it made it familiar. Did not make opening a restaurant any easier. It gave me some like an idea of what to do, but then like, you know, getting open and you realize, man, this restaurant stuff is difficult. And then you're in, you know, a really struggling main street, a very desolate main street, and you don't have the foot traffic, and you're running on, you know, hopes and dreams and goodwill, which has to, because it's got to be passion. If you're going to make it in a restaurant, you better be passionate about it. If you're doing it just because that'd be a good job. You're out of your mind. You better love it, because you're not in the right business if you don't.
So, okay. So how did you come up with the idea for that ended up being Upper Crust? Yep. Okay. Where'd you come up with that concept? Which I was so bummed whenever I was done, but coming back.
It's coming back. But so I was thinking, okay, I got to kind of baby steps here. Pizza, sandwiches, soup, salads, you know, that could kind of get, again, I'm without a culinary degree or a real experience in restaurant, or I mean, like fine dining. I'm not going to open like the restaurant I pictured like maybe I would grow to one day. So like I was honest with myself. What do you love? I love pizza. Were there any pizza places in Washington that weren't a franchise at that time? I don't think so. So there isn't really, you know, there's Oso's, there's some on the outskirts, but you know, what I was thinking, a round pie, the style of pizza I was picturing. No, not really. Domino's, and we had some chains, but
Yeah.
I didn't think that was real pizza. Not really great pizza.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
good,
yeah.
not great. So I was like, I think I can make great pizza. I really do. I believe that.
Good delivery pizza, not good like I don't want to sit here and eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we didn't. Yeah. Okay.
So then I was sourcing when I could for. So that was the vision. So I was like, okay, pizza shop. So then I had to get into pizza. So then I had pizza ovens and what I've seen, and then I'm reading Napoleonic Code and what true pizza's supposed to be, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this wrong. I was like, I need to build a wood-fired brick oven because that's what pizza is. And I said, that is what would put Washington on the map as something that you're not going to find, not just in Washington, but you're not going to find the surrounding areas, because the point is to drive people back to Washington. To come back, to not have to drive to Pittsburgh for every experience you want to have. What can we offer that's an experience worth driving this direction? And I believed it was centered around the pizza oven I was going to build. So I sold my pizza ovens. Wasn't enough money. Got down, I had to sell my car. And I literally sold my car to buy bricks and cement and insulation. And it took me months. But I built the brick oven by hand, brick by brick, and made that the centerpiece of the restaurant. And that was going to be what made the Upper Crust special. It was not only just a true wood-fired brick oven, it was built by the owner himself, every brick down to the keystone, like I did it by myself. My first masonry project as well. So
Jesus.
there's also the risk of that, because I remember telling someone one day, I was like, oh God, if this doesn't cook great pizza, I'm absolutely out of business day one.
Okay, so you were building that and then opening.
Yep.
So it was just originally pizza, some of the other
Sandwiches, soup, salads.
some of the standard
Centered around
pizza.
a pizza menu. Yep.
So how long did that take before you, from signing, hey, I'm now renting this place, and you opening? How long do you think?
We started gutting the place in, I think, September of 2009, and then opened June 4th, 2010. So, again, I had about half the money I needed, so, took way longer, because, again, you can have some business experience, but just starting a restaurant, I was off on a lot of things, so it was just inexperienced in a lot. Construction, only knew basic handy stuff.
Yeah.
So me doing it to save money took twice as long. So there was a lot, even more learning now. It was different before. Our stores were designed by a company, and I had instructions. I put it together and assembled it.
Yeah.
And it was already electrical diagrams and things like that. But an old Chinese restaurant that was needed completely gutted out and to the brick to start over was an undertaking. Oh man, I had free rent up front. I understand why now, because once I realized nothing worked, and the electric was a nightmare once you looked under the drop ceiling, and the plumbing from upstairs was leaking on me every time someone showered in a certain apartment. Then I realized okay, I'm really, really in deep here. So that was another obstacle, just to getting the point to opening, based on just the challenges of actually building the restaurant, not just the vision, understanding actually the recipes was the easy part.
Yeah.
Building the restaurant and actually trying to work with a budget was where the real challenge. The next thing that I learned lesson wise, how much work and thought processing to go behind a build out of a concept.
Yeah.
Big learning curve. So,
damn. Okay. Huh. That's wild. Okay, so you sign this lease, you get a couple months free, but you also are you have no concept for a restaurant. Now you have that. You've built it out. You finally open. Well, let's stay on that for a couple seconds. What was there anything during that process? Obviously, you find the place and you sign it 2 days later with no real plan. That's wild. But it kind of works out. Was there anything, not kind of, it definitely worked out. Is there anything in that beginning to opening phase that you are doing differently now when you're opening new restaurants or new ventures? Or is there anything that was specific to that circumstance that you could have done differently that doesn't require extra money or doesn't require, like, is there, what did you learn from that? Obviously you mentioned the budgeting, you mentioned some of those types of things, but was there anything else in just the lead up to opening that was really like mind opening?
Yeah, the whole process was mind opening for sure. And then you think I learned everything. So I'm like, how much did you learn? Oh, I learned, I could do this with my eyes closed now.
Uh-huh.
Then you try to open something like bigger or different. And you're like, again, I'm out of money. Again, it's going to cost how much? And then so it took like a few times kind of getting it wrong, or let's say a rocky start.
Yeah.
Well, it's still rocky starts for anything I do. But I'm aggressive and I'm ambitious, and it's because I dream big, and it's probably bigger than what I'm comfortable with. It's bigger than what I've done before. I can't help but to believe just big things for Washington. So like if it's an expression that I'm going to put my name on, like I lean towards the side of like going all in and
let's make this thing dope. Yeah. Let's make it sick.
100%.
Okay, so with that, is it the planning? Is it just, actually you mentioned this earlier, is it the biting off a little bit more than, is it the expectations for what it's going to take? Is that where the rough patch at the beginning, is that where it comes from?
That's part of it. I mean, definitely the time spent, jumping all in, maybe you could always wait a little bit longer. But then, like, I have a hard time, we all do, like, an opportunity presents itself. You're like, man, it feels right inside.
Uh-huh.
And then you jump in and, sure, maybe it's okay to pass on some opportunities because maybe it's just a preparation phase for what's next to come versus always, like, a pioneer right into, like, it's just, there's a balance between passion and rationality. That as business owners, like you're all heart. If you're a business owner, you've got a big heart.
Yeah.
You believe in something, you believe in yourself, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But the rational side of the dollars and cents and the nuts and the bolts and do I actually have, say I'm very successful and I bring all these people in and then you realize the size of team you need. Do I have the people with me to maintain that growth and reputation, or are you going to be open to close, filling in the gaps, and now you're balancing that passion versus the business taking its toll on like kind of what inspired it in the first place. That's a whole.
Well, and that's tough too, because if you don't do things because of that, then it's like, well, finding those right situations, that's difficult in itself. So it's like, okay, well, do you just never do anything?
Right.
Or you do everything and just kind of figure it out as you go. And it's like, I mean, is there a right way? Probably not. Like, you could do both. You could wait, you can plan forever, and then finally you get your one chance and you do the one thing and that works. Or you don't plan a lot and you start something and then do the planning while you're doing it, and then you do a bunch of things and they all can work too. Like, there's not a right way. It's just sometimes it might be a little bit more difficult. It's like, if I would have planned a little bit more, this might have been easier. But I also might not have done this if I planned a little bit more. Yeah,
and it's an interesting thing that a contradictor, like one of the first things I learned. And when we first started franchising, we had people that were real passionate and they just loved their hometowns, and we were selling them stores, and they didn't do well, which wasn't good for them because we feel so bad. They're not making money, they can't afford it. So we had stores closed. It's not like everyone we opened was successful.
Yeah.
And that's when we realized we had to really vet like location, like we would never put a store in Washington, Main Street.
Yeah.
There is no disposable income foot traffic to support that kind of store. And we had to turn people down to save them the heartache of not making money. So it's always like this location. And people are like, Mark, do you ever think about your location? Like, these are great, but shouldn't you just have went somewhere with like a lot more money? Or like, if you did the studies, they're all right. But I don't care because my plan wasn't to open a business that just made money. It was to restore my hometown.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you're going to weigh the odds, like you have to just follow your heart. Because if you do, then most likely that your effort will surpass the obstacles that come up. Yeah.
Well, and with that approach, it's like, okay, again, if I look at all the studies, this says no. But I'm not building. I'm building for the future here. Like, I'm trying to create something. So sure, there might not be traffic. I'm trying to create that,
For sure.
And that is a much different approach that, like, again, if you're franchising, someone's probably not going to offer you that spot in downtown Washington because it doesn't really work for that model. But if you're opening a small business where it's like the passion is there, you're trying to create something.
For sure.
It's like, okay, this might be enough.
And the passion.
We still need to look at some of the like, passion can take you so far, and maybe, like you said, like, maybe it doesn't work, but you could also be the catalyst to, or a piece of the catalyst that helps to drive traffic to your hometown or whatever your town is. Yeah, that's cool. That's a much different way of viewing that location piece. Okay, so you've got Upper Crust. Was that the only? How long was that the only thing that was
Upper Crust
that you had?
opened in 2010. I had when I originally opened the Upper Crust, I had a deli case in the center of the divide, the kitchen. So I had like a vision for retail, like Penn Mac. So I merged like Penn Mac and pizza shop, semi together, and not a good idea. Just because I'm cooking. I got a 800 degree oven, and I'm cooking 2-minute pies, and then a little sweet old lady needs a 1/4 pound of prosciutto and expects me to stop, come over, get the slicer for a 1/4 pound for and I'm like, yes, ma'am, and I said, perhaps these are two different stores.
Yeah.
But people love the ingredient. Mark, why are what's different? Why do I really like this sandwich so much? It's just an Italian hoagie. I said, yeah, when I tell them where it comes from. I said, you may not know, here's where your capicola comes from. Here's why I don't use this brand for this. Then we had a dessert case right by that, and people were like, oh, this is great. And are these homemade? At first, no, I was just buying them. And then I could only say no so many times. I said, I got to learn to bake like People Bakery. So then I started baking, and I did all the tiramisus, the cheesecakes, cannolis, like staples. And people are like, oh, I need one. I need a whole one for my birthday, or I need this. And I'm like, man, I'm really not into this business, but I'm not going to say no. And then the opportunity, so down the road so this would be an end of 2012. Washington had a used bookstore in what was Washington's first hotel, which now it's where Chicco Baccello is currently. To the left is where they have the deli case side of things, and to the left is the hair place. So the used bookstore, which literally sold books for $1, I don't know how they would be open anyway, was for rent. And I said, and people were like, the response to Upper Crust was amazing. I can't thank the community enough for rallying behind what I was trying to do. And then I said, I've always made products people want. I said I could put this, divide the businesses as I should, have the retail. It was called the Italian Market, and I opened my mini Penn Mac where the used bookstore was.
Okay.
Literally took the bookshelves off the wall. There are no outlets. Another lesson learned. All right, open a retail store. Let's get this thing powered up. Oh, no electrical outlets. Okay.
That's a problem.
So I bring in these ovens and my dog treat ovens, which are Boss, but they're 3-phase. Oh, building doesn't have 3-phase power. Can't be too bad, right? It's, right by then, it's then you realize the cost of running 3-phase power to a building, and then you're finally like, man, I'm out of money again. These ideas are expensive. And then, then I finally built it out, and I had my Italian Market, but it was supposed to be a bakery piece too, and I realized that the whole kitchen took up the whole space, so I don't actually have enough room for what I wanted to divide and do in the first place. So I did what I could, and it was just, I couldn't, very limited based on the size I had now, but it was still at an Olive Bar. You can come buy our homemade meatballs in the cooler, meat and cheese by the pound. Now you get someone working the deli counter. Breadworks delivered on a regular basis and was delivering fresh bread. And then the old school Washington people started coming out like, Mark, let me tell you, this is just like I remember back in so-and-so. Then I started getting the old history of Washington when it was a thriving downtown. And we used to walk from this store to this store and this drugstore. And you get a history lesson on a daily basis from anybody that's from Washington. And they're just like, Mark, we could ask you just like keep doing this because this is what it used to be like. This is how it grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, no matter how difficult this is, like I'm gonna keep doing it because it's just every store at a time was something that we had lost at some time or another.
Yeah.
And putting it back like meant so much to like actually restore like things that used to be, and then people tell me what it used to be, and this is just like what I didn't know. That I didn't know the history of Washington, what made it great, but I was filling in naturally like what we didn't have, and people would tell me how we used to have this soda fountain used to be up here, and different unique expressions. You didn't realize how cool Washington. You see the pictures of like all the people all over the streets, and the cars can't get by. That's awesome, but you don't hear the stories of what was so uniquely special that brought all those people downtown. And so me having to like work in Deli, kind of work on like a retail customer basis, and then hear these stories from people that grew up here was like, again, it kind of like, now I'm baking at 5 a.m. and I'm tossing pizzas by 11, and my schedule is like I'm already too thin. But hearing the stories of what it means to them to be able to walk around Washington and shop and do things is really, that's what it kept the passion greater than the obstacle.
That's cool. So how were you splitting your time at that point? Like, were you working? Yeah, I mean, that's a lot going on. How were you, like, obviously you said you had people working down at the deli, but like, how were you managing your time, and how the hell were you managing both businesses? Like, how were you personally were you managing that?
Not very well.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
It got to a point where, because, again, this was like, I was hiring bakers, like out of bakery school. I was like, and they weren't as good as me. And I mean, I cared more, but like I was interviewing and they'd bring in like cookies and like, these are really great cookies. I'm sure they can. And I kind of like, okay, here's what we make here. And like, they couldn't decorate the cakes, or their cheesecakes were falling. And I'm like, what's going on here? I was like, I thought I was going to hire good bakers, and like no matter what, it's still taking the time to find those right partners. Like if you're going to open a bakery, if it's not going to be you full-time baking, find that baker that is that one that you're going to build the business around, versus like putting yourself in that position to be the head baker and then think you're just going to kind of train your way right out. Yeah. Like that model was literally, that's why I was still baking. And then, the bakery was early, so I could stock the case we opened at 7. I was trying to catch the teachers before Trinity School, but they're running late too, so we were never that busy. So later we went to 8 o'clock. But so the bakery case needed full by 7. So from there, it was like getting through, and then I had people that could sell the stuff I baked, and then I could go open the Upper Crust for lunch. And in between there, beside us was between the Upper Crust and the Italian deli was a retail store, a consignment shop. It closed as well. So we went and we sold off their inventory, and that actually gave me enough to build out the bakery, the coffee shop side. Okay. So when I was actually have room to do one I want to do originally, because it was Washington's first hotel, there used to be big rooms that were connected. So we found in the old wall the original entranceway, and that's why now when you go down to Chicco Baccello, it's 2 rooms, but there's an opening indoors between the 2. Like we had to just start hammering until we found like the original entranceways from the 2 spaces. I went for a coffee shop because Crazy Mocha was our only coffee shop in the city of Washington, and it closed in 2012. So we went a period of until I opened, there was like 3 to 4 months where Washington didn't have a coffee shop. I mean, that's where our Main Street was. So it's not like, Main Street was rough. No, we didn't even have a coffee shop on a Main Street. We have a foot traffic of a courthouse. So my sister was a barista at Starbucks. Rachel, middle name Rose, after my grandmother. So Rachel Rose's Coffee House and Bakery opened once we got the retail sold, and we could finally combine the store. Then I had a coffee shop, sit-down bakery. You could come in, and then a shopping retail portion. So we had a sit-down bakery, coffee shop, retail, and it was the actual thing that I wanted to do originally. That's cool. Once I divided the Upper Crust. So we had like 3 locations, essentially, 3 businesses operating. The deli, That's why. Okay. So then... That's a lot going on at once. It's a lot. And that was beyond stretched
Well,
thin.
that's a lot just from the, like, with the work that you're doing. Like, okay, you're doing the baking. You're also cooking at Upper Crust. And you have 3 businesses that you're running.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell, like, where did you find time? Or were you putting time aside to kind of look at the businesses and do the managerial part of that? Or was it kind of just like, oh, we're just going. I'm just going, and when things come up, I worry about them. That's so much going on.
It was very much like the only way I managed was being there 24/7 to run them. So if things came up, I just dealt with it.
Yeah.
The product was always good because I made it. Like I didn't let the reputation slip. But I mean, I was completely burned out, and I was catering after we closed, it was down there. It was a 80th birthday party for someone, I believe someone's grandmother, and someone's talking to me, asked me the same thing, like, Mark, how are you doing this? And I said, listen, this is not for me. I said, it's
not sustainable.
This business, I did it because I believe Washington needed a bakery, it needed this, I'm doing these things, but for me to maintain them all is completely unrealistic. This whole bakery thing, this was meant for a family of bakers that have kids and sisters and like a whole army of family help, and they come together and they just put out amazing recipes and product. And he was like, this mutual friend, he goes, I actually know a family of bakers that might be interested. I said, well, if you could please set up that conversation. And later to find that the owners of the Toffee House that was up in Maiden Street Business Plaza, sisters, tons of kids, like big family, love to bake. And they said, we always envisioned opening a bakery. It's just with how Washington Main Street was, we never believed we could make it, or a business like that would be sustainable on Main Street. So they tried a little bit up where they made the toffee, amazing business, the dangerous stuff. They're known for a signature brand of toffee, and the people are just wonderful, and we have a great rapport with them, and it was such an amazing transition. But like they brought them down, and they're like, yeah, Mark, this is what we wanted to do. Like we totally believe in like we want to buy this.
Yeah.
And I said, that's great. This is great. So they saw it right before Christmas, and I said, I showed it to them. In December, like right before the holidays. And then like, all right, let's get through the holidays, and then maybe we'll meet the first. We'll meet right in January, and we'll actually talk numbers. So then I had my little presentation. Here's what I'd like for the business. And so that was the first week in January. We went through everything, and they were owners by February 1st. So like 3 weeks later, I had sold those 2 businesses. I was out of, now I just had the Upper Crust. But most importantly, it was like all the businesses were still opening. And running, and they were like kicking butt, and like people were, and they just grew the business. And then they brought in more family partners, and they were renamed Chicco Baccello with a family, and Lisa, who's just was an amazing addition and just a backbone to the business, and just took it to the next level. They put their heart into it, having the family support structure. I could see how well that worked for them. And I mean, they grew to a second location out of an idea that they probably never would have tried in the first place if I didn't prove that like a business like this can work on Main Street. And that's when I was like, man, I was actually meant to be a developer. I'm supposed to plant seeds and sell them and prove to people like I'm good at taking pain, working too much. Like these are some of my skill sets. They're not like good decisions, but I can handle it. So I'll get through the worst part of the first year. And then once I have everything figured out, I'll pass over like a turnkey business model, and I'll just do this all the way up Main Street until we're a completely thriving, rebuilt town. So, I mean, that was the plan, and then that's when I used the money for the sale. Biggest lesson I learned was like I had a very poor experience with landlords in both situations. So I tiled the floor as I put expansion. I put a ton of money into something that was not mine.
Yeah.
And once I made them so nice, both of them pulled the opportunity to like, Mark, buy this, until like, actually, we're going to hold on to this. This thing's really turning out good. And we happen to rent office
Thanks
space.
Thanks for all the work you've been doing.
Right. And then like, I hear more work, construction going on. Like, oh yeah, people really want office space next to a coffee shop. So, yeah, we're going to keep this. I was like, okay, I got it. So lesson learned, like own the real estate if you're going to put your heart and build something out. So that was like another whole thing I learned. And that's when like the only way I was able to purchase where the President's Pub was I was able to sell the coffee shop and bakery. And that was my real estate down payment to now actually be a landlord downtown. Because I also cared about the condition, how people kept their buildings. So now I can like, and I did. I spent way too much money on the face of restoring the President's Pub. Washington's first bank opened in 1902, the Union Trust Company. Only bank to survive the Great Depression in Washington County, moved to the Trust Building, and like a lot of history was, original Isley's shop, Lunchette. But like putting like the brickwork on the front and like uncovering the original bank sign that was like 4 layers deep, and I hand painted it with a little paintbrush just to restore like a bank was just about to open. And then I got just the limestone and different things that would have been like historically accurate to like what a really awesome building would look like. And I just want to show, because people are like, Mark, South Main's flourishing, great job. Just don't cross the tracks in North Main. Like, that'll be a really big mistake. You're lucky you made it this far. I said, well, too bad. I think it's going to be amazing. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to put that kind of like, stirred me the wrong way. Because, again, it's my idea. I'm passionate about it. And I'm showing people like, I'm all excited. Like, look at this opportunity. Like, Mark, just looks like a little too much work again. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought you were going to have something nice to say.
I thought you'd be excited about this too. Come on, man.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so we put a ton of effort into making just a beautiful building on North Main Street. So other landlords can look around and be like, yeah, your building could look at this. You just got to care.
Yeah, you just have to put the effort in. Damn. Okay, so that's cool. So the sale of that leads to President's Pub. When you were... Okay, so you buy the building. Did you know what you were going to do there? Because you still had Upper Crust at that point, right? Okay, so you have Upper Crust. Did you know what President's Pub was going to be?
I had a pretty good idea.
Okay.
So this is where I felt like all kind of unforeseen thing came up that was like, but a lot of mistakes I made, like I had a better understanding, like purchasing the real estate. There's some residential pieces that help offset the mortgage. That was important to me because like second and third floors of all of downtown Washington are empty or they're run down. Yeah. Which is why like we don't have that Lawrenceville effect. We're just open a cool shop and watch the people come. Yeah. No one lives downtown. Yeah. So like we have
to pull people in.
We really have to pull people in, and that's like unfortunately like Washington's still like a weekend warrior. So we have a lot of great businesses that kick butt on the weekends. And like we struggle during the week, and that's something that we're still working against because we need to make money 5 days a week, 6 days a week, not 2 days a week. Yeah. So like owners can hire an appropriate manager so they have family time, and that's something that I try to, when people ask about businesses downtown, I try to use my experiences just to kind of a more accurate for people who are driven all by passion, some things to consider. Yeah.
I mean, you get some traffic from the courthouse and some of those things, but again, it's like if people aren't living there, you're not going to get it consistently. And there's not going to be quite the same amount of traffic during the week that unless you're putting a ton of effort into the marketing side. If you can bring people in, that's one side, but a lot of, at least from the businesses and the people that I work with, that's always the difficult part because you go into business, and I like to cook. I like to make whatever it is. But I don't know how to bring people in. Like, I know how to do these things. And if you're in an area that doesn't have a ton of the natural foot traffic, you've got to be the reason that brings people in. So that has to be a big focus. And if you're missing that, then you're very reliant on just where are people going to find? Are people going to walk past and see me or not?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely correct. And that's been one of my things that I've been from a development standpoint, it's, people want to, we need more business downtown. I said, I promise you, we need more people living downtown because if you will get these people that, have a great idea and they open up and they can't make it, do you know how many people that are going to scare from not trying because a cool idea came and went and came and went and came and went because we're not producing a residential piece to give enough weekly foot traffic so these businesses can actually, provide a means to live on and a good means to live on.
Yeah.
That's my vision is, I'm so proud of the business we have downtown, but like, there's a lot of us. I mean, we do well because we work so hard, but it would be nice if we did so well because the city economically supported our hard work in a financial return that gives us some, not just financial freedom, but time freedom to live a good life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things are way better. There's been a ton of improvement, but I mean, it's just that continued push, and we'll get to the rest of the things that you've been doing, but like, I don't know, it kind of takes that person to, like you said, I'll take the shit. I'll take it for this amount of time. I'll deal with all of the nonsense for a little bit and then pass it off. And it's like, okay, I've planted another seed, which is cool. Like, that's a cool approach to it. And knowing that, I guess, okay, so back to, because this will feed into this question, President's Pub, what led to the idea of that? How did you come up with that concept?
I think I got a little bit more comfortable in my culinary ability and my diversity of my skill set.
Okay.
So, like, I've been chefing for a while now. So now, like, fresh seafood and cut steaks, like, it's not just pizza anymore. Like, from running specials at the Upper Crust and for years and working with some other, some talented people and just picking brains with other chefs, I kind of, now the gastro pub kind of became the new word of, like, what cool restaurants were.
Yeah.
It's gastro pubs, then it's like brew pubs, and we went to this craft beer section that became, so I kind of saw what I thought that a trend would be. It's like more of like, we had enough Italian, we have good Italian, good classic Italian, American Italian. But like an American fare, again, like made from scratch cooking, but like American, like fun bar food, but just culinary, like elevated, and really had like, and that's just when I got to be a little bit more well-rounded with the menu, what I thought people would just love. Yeah. Like, what don't we have downtown? What could I offer? Like, beer options. Like, we were not a craft beer town. Main Street Brewhouse has a great list. Then they came along to the scene too. But before that, like, you're driving to Pittsburgh to get a cool beer. Yeah. No one's putting an extensive draft list on Main Street, Washington, let alone, to the extent that we thought would, like, even with our bourbon selection and the food. So, like, this whole idea was another a restaurant that would do really well in Pittsburgh and be able to, like, throw their weight around because they're trying to push the envelope. Yeah. And again, just put it on Main Street, Washington, so people start driving this direction. So I knew, like, again, I went aggressive because I just had a concept in mind. And Washington and Jefferson, we got to get them to Main Street. They're the presidents, so I'm calling it the President's Pub. I want to connect with them and let them know that this is going to be a place where we can all meet. Yeah. Because it used to be. Yeah. And that's the thing that's always inspired me about Washington. And a lot of people, they question, like, how did you see through? I said, well, what I see is a lot of emptiness. I see a lot of stuff that left, but it worked while I was here. The highways still intersect. Yeah. Like, college professors used to talk to city council at a table having a beer at Ernie's Freestyle. Like, that all worked. So opening those doors back up and creating the opportunity for people to come back and, like, network on Main Street and look around and think of what could be. Like, a lot of it was, we could have been, even though a lot of empty storefronts, at least it wasn't like our crime's not high. On average for a city, it's not. That's not the problem. It may be blighted. There may be a lot of loitering. It could certainly be cleaner and better landscaped, and we could have, better accountability for some landlords that aren't keeping up their property. There's still that going on. But those are problems that are fixable. And so it's more restoring Washington what it already had versus trying to recreate the wheel and like how do we remove all this negative element. It's not really remove the negative element. It's just like bring the good back.
Yeah. Huh. That just that change in, well, and that feels way easier. Bringing the good back is like, bringing something back feels a lot more doable. Remove it because then it's like, and this is just like mentally, it just feels this way. Like you say, bring the good back, that feels so much easier. It's like this thing already existed.
Absolutely.
Just bring it back. Remove the bad. Okay, then what? Then what? Then we have to make something new? Like that just sounds way more difficult and way less approachable.
Absolutely. And it's amazing, like and I've got to have the experience talking to people that grew up in Washington that are in their 60s and 70s and retired, and then you have people that grew up like their adulthood, maybe they're in their 30s or 40s, and how they talk about Washington. Oh, the memories that the older folks have that have been here growing up in its heyday. They believe me, they thought, of course, more. I don't know what it was taking so long.
Yeah.
While no one else is like, you understand, this used to be the best of everything. I met my wife here. I did this was our, and there are amazing stories of a wonderful life right here on Main Street. And then there's just a lot of people that miss out on the experience, and that attitude and like perception has been a biggest challenge because that carries out to, people that have moved away from Main Street or Washington in general because, there's as a young adult, it's just not the life that you pictured, and then an attitude, there's nothing down there in Washington. There's nothing. But again, like I said, but it used to be. So it's just a matter of how are we going to, as a city, bring back, the passion for what was always what made us a great city. It was a great city.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you've got President's Pub. You've got you get that build out. How long did it take you from the time you bought that to open the restaurant? How long did that take you?
That took a while.
Did you get that? Was that a better experience than Upper Crust?
No.
Okay.
No, it was worse. It was worse because it was way bigger.
Okay.
One again, and now we're putting in residential apartments. Like I'll give you a for instance. So taking the time, measuring my BTUs I need to operate gas furnaces, like with the gas company. I'm getting I have my whole kitchen line up. I plan for gas fire pits out in the patio, and I'm getting all the apartments ready. And I did the math. I took the time to not just throw in gas and all of a sudden be short. Like I did the appropriate. Run all the gas to find that this particular block has low pressure lines. Don't know why. Other areas of Washington, they don't have the specific pressure. So although I have the appropriate amount of like gas lines already we ran them brand new. This is like 1.5 inch flex, and I ran all the way through 3 stories of apartments. Then it come to with like code, and they come in, and I realize, I said, Mark, you're gonna have to replace all this. I said, man, I just ran all this. So because of this pressure that you're getting here at this particular property, like this block, you're going to have to replace all your gas lines with 2-inch steel. So now it's not even flexible. So now we're cutting holes. I literally ripped open the whole restaurant to rerun.
Oh my God.
$15,000 later, now I have 2-inch black steel pipe gas lines versus 1.5 inch flex, which should have been not, So again, I guess if I had the right engineers working on the project, someone measured the PSI of this block. So I didn't know to even, I got a chart from the gas company and said, this is how you calculate the size lines, and just never left out that slow PSI. So there's no shortage of things like that. That again, you can really try to do your homework, but it just, no matter what, there's unforeseen. No matter what you
don't know what you don't know.
You got to have reserve. I never have reserve. I have I have just enough to not quite have enough to like. Okay,
well, you can figure it. I could probably figure out this little piece.
75% of the way there, and 25%. Hopefully, I got some equity. I'll do line of credit. We'll finish up and pay it off once we get open. Something a little over the finish line kind of stuff. And then like something monumental happens. Like, man, I did not account for this. Damn. So those kind of challenges again. It took the build out because now I'm like, honestly, there's a lot of people I working for me as well, guys. You're all going up. I'm gonna have to work a month or so by myself, and I'm gonna not pay you to do it. I'm gonna delay the opening, but I can afford myself, and I'm gonna do the work. And I'm gonna delay the opening, and I'm just gonna me and my little brother. And we have pictures of us like just wild in the middle of like two people. In the middle. It looks like just a daunting task to even think this is like, where's the whole crew at? And you're like, yeah, that's it. What's your experience? Minimal.
Yeah.
You know,
Upper Crust.
Yeah, we did this before once. So yeah, that again, it was when you have money to always kind of trying to do something bigger and like to grow. Always takes more, and it took everything I had. So like I just never really had the room for that kind of things that came up. So it certainly caused delays, and you know, just we just had to learn to work through them. And you learn a lot of pride swallowing. You know, you learn a lot of and just honestly how to stay mentally like telling yourself it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because like there's times where you're like pretty close to throwing in the towel, and then you're all, you know, I know I've had in my prayer life like, Lord, you really, you know, I really felt this was what you wanted me to do. I was impacting lives. I was creating jobs. People were telling me that this is their vision for the city, and I'm building it. This is getting pretty difficult, and I'm not quite sure. I'm starting to second guess, and then you get through it, and you're a better man for it. You're back to your plan. So I just didn't have a plan B, because that's what I pray. Lord, I don't have a plan B. I need to. Yeah. And He knows that His plan's always better than our plan. So having that faith in not just yourself, but when you follow your heart, that the good things are going to come from it, and that's just. There's a lot of faith in business ownership, and then you just have to believe it's going to work out. And you know it's life lesson stuff that you come across when you have to kind of overcome obstacles that you really didn't think or didn't know how you were going to do it, but you do it.
Well, especially when it's not even like, okay, you plan for, I can figure out the 25% easy. We got that, no big deal. But when that 25% becomes, I don't know, 50, 60, because you've got things like that where it's like, I spent all this money, I just replaced all this shit. Now I've got to redo all of it, and in a way that is way more difficult. Like, okay, that 25% is now 60%. How in the world, like, passion can help me, but I don't know, that maybe gets me back to my 75%. How in the world am I getting through the rest of that? That is that's difficult. That is difficult. But you got through that one.
We got open.
Yeah, you opened. So, okay, damn, that is wild, and I'm sure that wasn't the only. The only thing that came up that was a setback there. Okay. So you've got Upper Crust, or sorry, you do have both of those at that point. What led to you? Did you sell Upper Crust, or what?
Before. So I was going to list the Upper Crust for sale publicly with a broker. My manager at the time, he came to me and said, Mark, we talked about the wife, the family. We'd really like to keep this. You know, would you not put it on the market and sell to us? Parents are on board. They're going to, help with financing. And I was, to be honest, I mean, I'd love to keep it locally owned and operated. That was the, and that's the goodwill piece. It makes for a good story. So things just didn't go as planned. And then the parents thought that the kids should, finance it themselves, and then they couldn't get a loan through the bank. I'm like, guys, I already put my down payment on President's Pub. This wasn't the plan. And then, so anyway, you can finance it for us. I was like, man, I don't have a choice. I'll work with you, but I don't know how I'm gonna. And that's another thing. That's one of the reasons. selling the Upper Crust was the money to open the President's Pub, like with the money I actually needed.
Yeah.
So like I didn't plan on putting myself in a position where I was short again. It was, I'm going to sell this business. It was contractually written up, and instead of getting into already now I'm in a legal battle. Like, let's try to finance this thing, and like maybe after a year, the bank said, after a year in business, you'll be able to refinance, and then we can, purchase the business. I said, okay, it'll probably take me a year to get open, so maybe that'll be the money. That's where the 25% was supposed to be. Okay, I'll just move forward with what I can, and then after a year, I'll finally get that payment on the back end, and then I'll have a grand opening. And then a year came, the bank denied him again. Then they moved the location from where the Upper Crust was and successful. And I'm like, well, let's partner with a brewery. That'll be, in theory, I understand. But again, from doing a lot of things like on theory versus, it's not, bigger isn't always better. The grass isn't always greener. Like if you're successful with a salary where you're at, like that was the nature of that business where it's meant, kind of meant to stay. It's where it should have been. Yeah. The brewery should have been a cool burger joint, and which is kind of where they found a burger partner and kind of went to like more of like what paired well with beer. And, that was a difficult transition with them because the Upper Crust didn't work there. So now I'm out of business. I'm out the money that was supposed to be coming to me. I'm short on President's Pub because there's nothing I can get. There's nothing I can go get. The equipment, the brewery already has it in their kitchen. I can't let me get my equipment back. And technically now it's already someone else's. Should I have had an attorney do a way better job on the legal in this? Yeah. But we were...
Yeah, but it also, like, as we're talking through all these, it feels like you kind of brought this up where it's like the passion can drive you, but it can also lead to, like, you're not making those decisions based on... So I've had this come up with a couple clients recently where it's like when you're dealing with small businesses, it's very personal, and you've got and you're passionate about restoring Washington. So like you're seeing the best in these situations where it's like, okay, could you have done this a little bit differently? Sure, but that's not like the way that you're viewing. It's a small town, small businesses. Like we're all in this. Yeah. We're all in this together. And then when you have things like that happen, it's like, sure, could I have done it?
Right.
Could we have? Yeah, but that's...
You're right. It wasn't just a business deal.
Yeah,
it wasn't just selling a business. It was supposed to be owned by someone I knew would do a good job. Yeah. And he did manage the restaurant well when he was there. Kept the reputation high, put out good product. So I was like, man... and it was a table like this, and it was on a handshake. I said, I'm not going to put it on the market. I want you guys to have it. And that was... No, it didn't work out, but you're right. Not everything works out. Doesn't mean you're necessarily wrong. Yeah, it's like, sure, you could have done. Could you have done it differently? Was there a way that could have been successful, or a successful transition where Upper Crust now you don't find yourself, or President's Pub, you don't find yourself in this weird situation where it's like, how am I going to do? Like, how does this all work? Sure, but the passion kind of. It can kind of actually, you said it earlier, like the rational part needs to be there, but the passion can kind of overtake some of the deeper rational questions there where it's like, yeah, we should probably, it should be a little bit more structured. But you're dealing with small businesses and for a purpose that you're very passionate about. It's like, we're trying to make this thing work. We're trying to make this all better. Yeah, and initially that's where the heart was, and that's what I signed up for. Yeah. So that's just, we structured something that made... Yeah. It's this way that we could have came into an agreement with the facts we had on the table, and we agreed to give it hell. And because, again, like for me to I'm not opening the President's Pub because I love running restaurants. I'm already burned out from restaurants. But I know, like, what does Washington need to be a thriving downtown? It's like, so you take the Upper Crust, I'm going to open a bigger kind of like bar kind of thing with big outdoor seating, because we also didn't have outdoor seating. Yeah. Pepino's had a cool little spot, but that was closed. Yeah. So I'm like, not only am I going to, so I opened the only coffee shop. Now we have a coffee shop. Only place that has outdoor seating and a draft list. And, that's the President's Pub. So we're filling in these... What would uniquely rebrand Washington, have the things that people are driving elsewhere for. So just trying to pick and choose Exactly what you're going to do based on what you think the town needs best isn't always going to be the financially the easiest decision to make. But ultimately, as we move forward, like it's all going to shape the story, and it's going to be a part of it's going to happen how it should, and it's going to be amazing.
So, okay, man, it's like you can only working with small businesses it's not the same as what you would if you were coming from like the corporate world. It's like, because of course you would have done it differently. That's not how this works.
Yeah,
it can, but there's a lot more faith in the people, especially in that, like if we look at that case again, it's like you've already been working with them. This isn't just some random dude. It's like, hey, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's tough. Okay, so now you've got President's Pub, and that's it at that point. 19 North comes within the last couple years. Assuming same MO. Like, we don't have this space. I think I can do this. What was the approach there? How did you where did that come from? Like, what did you, obviously you think we need this thing, but what was the thought behind that?
So a lot of it was catering, being a caterer for a lot, and that's a very strong financial piece to any restaurant because it's like guaranteed money. And like downtown Washington doesn't have guaranteed foot traffic. Yeah. So if I could secure, like, especially during the week and things, but I'd lose a lot of catering because most nice catering halls don't, they do their own catering. So I never had a space to put anybody. So having a space to actually host like large events, made sense to, like, that would really help the business to have an event space. Two, I've done enough restaurants now, so I felt like I tipped the scale on, okay, here I'm restaurants. And again, even though the President's Pub's awesome, like the foot traffic downtown hasn't really changed. So my next project was not going to be a restaurant. It needs to be a tourism piece. So I need something that's going to draw people, like, and again, like surrounding Washington and in towns, there's a lot of great President's Pubs. There's a lot of cool restaurants all over the area. So on a regular basis, people aren't going to drive by a cool restaurant to come to my cool restaurant. Matter of convenience. Yeah. So that's not, so I see like really great restaurants. It would take,
especially recently, like the surge of great restaurants.
Absolutely.
We have so many in the Pittsburgh area. There's so many good restaurants.
Absolutely. So to service like the restoration of a downtown was now more of like a destination venue, like concerts, comedians, dinner shows, like Washington Symphony is in, Trinity High School's auditorium, which is great, but it's bleacher seats and that's uncomfortable and it's not like theater style productions. So now we can have, and Washington Community Theater and like a lot of nonprofits that one of our greatest assets are our local our nonprofits because it's just phenomenal talent. You see their passion and now I'm like, it's the culture piece that Washington needs because it's the culture that makes the city livable. So giving a place, a home in the dead center of our downtown, a place to have culture and experiences and things that other towns in the surrounding area don't have. All of a sudden, a 30-minute drive to an amazing show or a theater performance or a comedian, 45 minutes, like we're seeing that now. Yeah. Like we drove from, Mark, we used to drive to Pittsburgh, we're from Wheeling. I'm capturing an entire city to drive instead of through Washington to stop at Washington because we're doing the same kind of entertainment that the city of Pittsburgh's doing. So we have a whole city, we have Morgantown coming through the area. Again, now let's get back to putting the biggest stop in Washington, dead center of town. So instead of driving through, there's a reason for people to make a stop, to get off the exit, which all in turn that does, it gets, all the restaurants are busy. Yeah. That's the tide raises all ship. That's the theory that makes it all work because when you're at a show, you're going to dinner beforehand. So now you're at Union Grill or you're at the Washington Brewery and you're for dinner because you're coming to a show later or afterwards you're going to one of those places for drinks. Or did you know that Washington has 2 distilleries, a winery, a brewery? You wouldn't know if you're from out of town perhaps unless you stopped and you were spending your time So pulling people into Washington to erase that perception that there's nothing to do in Washington. We see it now. You and me, we're here, we work here, and we see Main Street, like, we're like proud. Like, yeah, man, we're kicking butt. Things are coming back. Liberty Pole's awesome. All these people, you know, we're really proud of, like, the growth that we've seen. But a lot of people that don't come to Washington do not know what we have going on. They may have heard about it, word of mouth, I heard this, or 19 North. But you get the right people in. Oh, man, do you understand that 19 North is like an actual venue? Like, the concert was like the lights, the sound, like Jimmy Crenn was down in Little Washington performing, you know, and then people are like, our following's running quickly because they're like, man, and these are people I'm talking to not from Washington. That is the tourism. That is what is starting to make Washington exciting, because we're doing things that other towns aren't doing, because they are doing cool restaurants. They're not doing big shows. Yeah. So that is something that that was just the next kind of chess piece was, I need like one more anchor tenant that is going to pull people just to town for a weekend, for an event, for something that's going to draw outside of what a restaurant can draw. So there's events that we're finally gaining traction. And like you mentioned our winter farmers market or vendor fairs, like 22 businesses were our last one. 22 local businesses open up a store for one day, Main Street, Washington, inside 19 North. We don't have 22 businesses if you add up all the businesses downtown, yet they're giving a chance on our Main Street because, one, the farmers market pioneered it, but that's just, it's very seasonal and it's very rural forward, and it's great. But to lose that momentum and to start over, I said, can we have like a year-round market? So I talked to Shayna Brown. Also, hats off to phenomenal effort to everything she's trying to do, which is what we believe that can be done. She's helping do it in a big way. So she said, I'll reach out to the vendors, and from the farmers market, here's a list. And we emailed everybody, and they're like, we'd love to keep a presence in Washington year round, instead of just, May to October or whatever it is. And like overwhelming response, like 8 out of 10 people we sent were like, we would definitely be down. So now we're on our 4th one, and even in January, businesses came, they opened up, they're from Washington County, they made money, they thanked me for doing it. We didn't make a ton, but it's good press, it's good a PR piece, it's good for like 19 North, like to understand what its purpose is, and it's to serve the downtown, it's to serve the community, it's to be a player in what we all are sharing. Yeah. And to see like all these cool business owners, or you're from, look, you have Swope's Farm or Old Road Farm, you have farmers bring their rural piece and they're bringing their families, and you're hearing their stories, and you're understanding like how dynamic Washington County is. And we are the county seat. So there's this a little something about pulling Washington County to the city of Washington, which the presence of the county is just not well represented enough in the heart of the county seat, because we're a phenomenal and we're a very diverse county. So to see all of that regional flair come to Main Street is certainly something that I intended 19 North to do, and like we're getting to. We're getting to see the fruits of that labor. Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, again, it's like the same with the rest of the spots so far. You've got this thing, you said, did you run these markets and does it make a ton of money? Probably not. Could you make more? Maybe. But the passion there, like you said, like, this is, for Washington, this is good for now. This is good. This brings people in. And again, will this lead to, maybe not for 19 North, but maybe we've got more people here, so President's Pub gets a little hit, and Southern Yanks gets a little hit, and all these places get a little hit on this day because you've got more traffic. You've got these events that are coming in. It's like, that's it's cool. And it's a cool space within the variety of things that you guys are doing, like comedy shows and also vendor markets. Yeah. Like they're all happening in the same spot. It's cool. It's cool. And it's a cool thing to have that flexibility within the downtown, because it does give you, it's like, okay, well, what do we need during the winter months? Okay, we can still do all of these things. We can do the markets to bring people in. We can have shows, we can have this, we can have this, we can have this. If we have new ideas, great. It's not a blank canvas, but
it provides a lot of flexibility to kind of do all the things that that you've been trying to do at all the other spots, and have been doing at all the other spots. Yeah, it's a cool spot. It's a cool venue. So okay. So 19 North, again, furthering the vision of Washington. That kind of takes us. I mean, we've got Upper Crust again, Forbidden Cellars. We've got those things. Not quite there yet, but I'm imagining same things as before. You've got same challenges that come up. I'm sure there's some things that are a little bit different, but is there anything of note with, as you're learning another, you're opening new spots again, is there anything different that's still popping up that you're learning in the opening of those? Because that start pre-COVID? No.
No, it's actually a bit of a birth child of COVID.
Okay.
The reason, so we bought, same with the 19 North, we opened August 2019. So we were open for 6 months just to close for 2 years. So I didn't plan on that.
Yeah.
Large indoor gathering space, that's a tough one, That's like the only thing you're not allowed to do for the longest period of time.
Yeah.
And then we bought the building in 19 where the Upper Crust is going to be, and our winery label, Forbidden Cellars. But we bought the building because it had 2 other tenants. I had a salon on the second floor because I was showing in particular to salons because that would be a great piece of foot traffic for downtown. So just a little bit of dynamic. Not that we don't have a couple other great salons, but there's a market for it downtown. And then Perked Up Cafe, another great establishment. We're looking to expand. And I mean, they had the keys for it. So there wasn't going to be the Upper Crust. It was going to be the third Perked Up Cafe, which was going to be a phenomenal lunch service, owned and operated, family baking. It was just, I went there. We had a mutual friend, showed them the space. And it was going to be perfect size for them. And then pandemic hits, the salon, instead of opening a second location, closes their first, sells. Perked Up Cafe scales back and says, we're not expanding to a third location. So now I'm coming through COVID with a mortgage, and now both my tenants have now, because I thought I finally was going to do it right. I'm going to open something that I don't have to work. I know.
That's 2 times in a row.
Tell me about it. So I was like, I'm actually not going to run this one. I'm going to be a landlord, and I'm going to be the best darn landlord. I'm going to give them everything they need. I'm going to make sure they succeed, all the stuff maybe I didn't have support-wise. Then I have empty
Changing
space.
Plans.
And I'm like, man. So then I listed with a realtor just to lease the spaces. I'm showing it, but just like no one's biting. And so I was like, Mark, you know what? Sure would be a great Upper Crust again, don't you think? I'm like, oh man, I'd lie to you if I said I didn't think about it. And then I was like, oh man, but it honestly, it's like, if I don't put something in here, I'm going to have to start working backwards, getting rid of real estate I took on, and it's a prime building, and it's, again, with the right tenants, that's an anchor space. And it's meant for amazing tenants. I just didn't think I would be moving in as one of them. But I also always was on my heart, the Upper Crust deserves to be on Main Street. So putting it back for me, I built another brick oven hand by hand. It's in there. I could fire it up right now, Lesson learned, though, also part of it is where I'm at now with staffing post-pandemic, kitchen-wise. I'm no way going to open a restaurant for the president's probably be like, man, Mark's not here. This, or, building again, this isn't just a financial play.
Well, you've already experienced that side of it. You know how that can go. You were running 2 places that required your time.
Yeah. It's a mistake to try to stretch myself in again.
You know what that means. So, man, that's tough. That is a tough spot.
Yeah, we just didn't expect the labor market to be this short for this long. And no one did. And it's not just it's the people that delivered my wood for the brick oven. I couldn't get help and that's a whole nother different business. So it's just, we're all in that, but now it's just like owners without the appropriate help. And when I open, like the grand opening for the Upper Crust again is special, and it is. I don't want to let down the grand opening that I've envisioned because I'm just trying to do it because people are tired of waiting or because I'm being impatient.
Yeah.
I just have to find the right help.
Yeah.
I just need to find the right, and the same with the bakery. I ran open a bakery thinking that right baker will come along. Oh, I'll open the Upper Crust and I'll hold it together until the chef comes along and the manager comes along.
You can only do that stuff so many times. Like, you've already done that. Why?
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's something else is going to suffer.
Yeah.
So I'd rather wait until it's right and do it right than rush forward a project just because it's on my heart to open. I just need to understand the current business climate, adapt, and like, again, just try to work through it and figure it out. So
have you explored like I don't know, like do we have any like culinary schools around here? Do we have anything that you could work with, like an internship program or anything like that? I don't know the answer to that.
I think we do. I know Greene County has a really great culinary program, and I have been in touch with them. But a lot of that new hire, I'm not saying you can't find. There's a difference between a good cook, or great at executing versus like managing a restaurant. So like,
gotcha.
I believe that the food might be good, and you could probably cook a wonderful dish. But are you going to be able to maintain a staff that is coming together where the whole atmosphere of the restaurant is like dynamic and welcoming and what I expect it to be?
That makes sense.
That's like a big experience piece. So you can find some quality work if the right management team is in place to foster that into, like a kitchen that really cooks.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, if there is no real rush, obviously you'd like to have it open, but it's like you want to do it right. It was a thing before, and it was awesome. Yeah. You don't want to tarnish that, but also you don't want to put yourself back in that situation where it's like, now I've got three things again, except they're not like before. You kind of had deli and coffee shop that were kind of connected and kind of operating the same, but 19 North is operating differently than President's Pub, which will be operating differently than Upper Crust. Like, brushing that and like, oh, well, I could just take this on again.
Right.
Like, could you? Maybe.
That's maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. But also, what does that mean for all of, like, if you take that on and everything goes down, you don't want to destroy the work that you've put in the last however many years. Like, you've created some awesome things. You don't want that. You don't want those experiences to be lesser because you just had to get this thing open.
Yeah, so that's just that's just a tough spot we're in there. So
yeah, I mean, you'll figure it out. I mean, you've gotten to this point,
right?
Yeah, that sucks. That's a tough one. Okay. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to touch on? We're about almost 2 hours in.
Okay. Yeah. I guess there's more stories to tell. The building that collapsed between the two. Yeah. The people wonder, what took that so long, or or what was the challenge with that? Well, there's a building. It collapsed. It fell on my building. The taxes were delinquent when I bought it because he was trouble keeping up with taxes. No, I didn't. I had to buy the building with back taxes, and the bank was willing to do that because we were going to refinance as soon as I purchased it. But then a building fell on top of mine, did $6,000 to $8,000 of damage to the roof. Oh my God. I was locked out at 19 North for 3 months, and when I came back in, water was pouring in from the roof because the roof used to be attached to the building that collapsed. So once that building collapsed, they demoed it, like it was never secured. So the wind just blew the entire roof open, and all the elements poured through and we're talking $6,000 to $8,000 to the roof. And then the interior needed gutted back down to the brick due to the mold, due to the water damage, the plastering, the drywall, the paint. No insurance money for that. And you think, of course. And then It was an emergency situation, so
Oh my gosh.
I had to sign paperwork by the city and the crane company saying we have to work off of your roof to, the emergency evacuation. It's dangerous. It's going to fall. More people are at risk. So I'm like trying to do the right thing. I sign away the rights to like damages and like, well, we'll work with you. Don't worry. The building has insurance. It did have insurance. It had $1 million policy. But when the lady got stuck in there and she was awarded $850,000, and then you had another person that was concerned that the police were coming that lived in the building and jumped out and broke his arm and he got $100,000. And now you're down to $50,000 out of $1 million left. And then you got to pay all the attorneys for a 2-year lawsuit. And I ended up getting $8,600 for about $100,000 in damages. That was how that project started. And that was back.
Oh my God.
That was back in 2017. So yeah, we just reopened. So we had to survive the collapse of a building, a global pandemic, and I say all that not just to say, man, I've endured so much, which I have, but the brighter side of that is I just have to, I haven't done any of this on my own. My family, 100% couldn't have done it without them. Partners I've had especially over the last several years, Carrie Beckett, she's stuck through most people would have jumped on to a little bit of a smoother sailing ride. But she just fell in love with the vision, and for her to stick through and still be supporting everything that we do because we're still making it and we're still making it happen. And then if it wasn't the support of Washington, community wise, encouraging that the path is right and it's good and that you need to keep going forward. I would have thrown in the towel if people were just didn't take the time to genuinely thank me or be a part of it. Or if there wasn't other business owners that came to Washington and opening something really awesome too. What I've done wouldn't be enough for all this to work. 19 North wouldn't have the draw if Liberty Pole and Red Pump and Washington Brewery and Southern Yanks and the Cheerful Balloon, a retail shop after we lost our only retail shop, just some unique expression. If people didn't keep coming to Washington, everything I worked for could be lost at any time. So knowing that I'm surrounded by strategic partners on a daily basis, whether they're connected to me, family, love, or just because we're all in Main Street together, I just have to be so thankful and grateful. And if I had to say anything, that's the only way I survived everything is just the people that have actually supported me. Yeah,
it feels like there's a lot of the right people are starting to get involved with a lot of like you mentioned Shayna. Yep. Shayna's killing it. I work with we work together on a lot of things with some over at the CDC. So, but yeah, I mean, it feels like there's a lot of the right people that are starting to get involved, and I think a lot of that comes from it's difficult when nothing's here. It's difficult to see a vision because you just kind of feel like the crazy person.
Yeah, right.
But once a couple things start to happen, it's like, hold on a second. Okay, I can see this isn't that crazy. We've got a long way to go. We've got less of a way to go now. We've got, there's room for improvement, but as soon as you've got a couple little things that people can latch onto, then everything else feels a little bit more attainable, a little bit easier. Somebody else has had a restaurant. Okay, well, maybe there's an event space. There's a coffee shop. There's a pizza. There's all these things. And it just becomes a little bit easier, but you kind of need you need a couple people to kind of suffer through the shit.
You need they say the pioneers catch the most arrows.
Yeah.
And there's a few of us that I know that we've endured that for a long time, but also we're also on the ground floor. So when we finally we take everyone that's been over the last decade putting their passion, their heart forward, and the right developer comes along, and I've pitched at Washington to lots of people that could probably bought the town 10 times over, but the allure wasn't there, or the financial return wasn't there, or they're not from the area, so they just don't care. But we're going to get to a point where Washington becomes so special that someone's going to see where we're at and see the gold in Washington, and they're going to plant the residential pieces. They're going to build where all those buildings were finally torn down, on the corner of Chestnut and Main Street. Man, if I put we go 4 stories, 60 units. Imagine we moved 100 some people downtown. All of a sudden, there's 100 people with jobs walking around spending money at the local businesses. And someone says, man, these buildings are, 80% occupied. And now the colleges say, man, if we could have a safer routes as we improve like our lighting, and we're working on Pine Alley for a more transitional pathway between the college and the downtown. And then people bring more and more residential, because now people visiting the college, they are now comfortable and actually excited to stay downtown.
Yeah.
And now that there's people walking around downtown, and then when the president of the college gets to take people on a tour, instead of losing 1 out of 4 students because of the downtown tour, because kids say, Mom, this isn't where I want to live as a young adult, where parents are saying, I don't know if this is safe, because it has been that many years. We had a lot of fences up over like blight. And that, but if you're not from here, you're just thinking this isn't safe, or crime's high, or the perception is. But a lot of people, even though we see that on a daily basis, it's our hometown. We put such a good foot forward. Like, we've actually still, the fences are removed. There's murals in their places. Yeah. There's new businesses. And as we inspire enough people, there's going to be people that are going to be magnetized, drawn back to Washington, that are going to start investing on the real estate piece and the residential side. And because we have a critical mass of things to do and walk to, that's what makes it worthwhile to live in. And we're going to see the second, third floors being occupied with new housing, with renovation, and then we're going to take some of these old buildings, and someone's going to put new living situations, efficiency apartments, and different things where people can live in a hip, cool, freaking town, and it's going to be ours. And we're getting close. Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of the right people. You're doing a ton of work, obviously. That all sounds like something that I want to be a part of.
Yeah, you are, and I appreciate you taking the time to just, give business owners like us a spotlight, because a lot of times, again, we're too busy working to stop and tell our stories, and sometimes the story helps other people realize that, man, they're going through the same stuff I am. Yeah. And they made it. Yeah. So I am too. Yeah. So it's a lot to have a voice that's not driven by an agenda, but you're literally genuinely just want to hear our story and use it to help inform other people. So I got to thank you for your efforts in the podcast, for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm glad I can help to highlight some people. Anything else before we go? All of the links to all of the current venues and President's Pub, all of those things will be down below. But awesome. Anything else that, any final parting words? You kind of just summed up everything, but anything else before you go?
No, to be honest, I think we covered everything that I felt was good to cover. And again, I do appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for all that you're doing. I said it at the beginning, but you are, you're a catalyst and a person that you've the name behind several of the staples in Washington right now. So it's cool. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for what you're doing. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Till next time. See ya.